Evening. Welcome back to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. This is the Buddy Martin Show. I'm from Gator Bait, and going to be a good show tonight. Got a good show lined up tomorrow night. Going to be a good show all the week here on the Buddy Martin Show at SEC Sidelines. Don't forget to listen to Rob every day, too, as well. So, on the program tonight, what's up with these Gators? Well, we've got people who will tell us, starting with Scott Carter, who joined the program early on. We're going to jump into the thing with gymnastics for a minute with our guy Dan Bond, who's in Dallas, was out in Dallas for the national championship. And it's Lauren Meadows' time. Lots of things to talk about tonight on the program. What is up with these Gators? Baseball, softball. Want to hear your comments. All right? And we're going to announce a special guest coming up here tomorrow night. Don't want to miss it. Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin coming to you again live from the home of my good friend Carswell Ponder in Ocala. Also my mentor as a quarterback. Doesn't speak too well for him, does it? But enjoying my time here this week. Myself and my wife Dawn broadcasting live from Carswell's porch. It's a terrific setup. I want to thank him for being such a good host. All right, tonight on the program, stuff going on. All right, guys, let's see how sharp your eyes are. I'm going to leave this up here for a minute, and let's see if you can pick these people out and tell me. And if you can guess it, I'll give you congratulations. We'll figure something out. And it's people that you should know, and they're at a place that's very special to us, which is Spurger's Grand Grill, where we'll be going Friday night to have a little birthday celebration with my son and my wife and some friends. So, here's the deal. We start out tonight with a little photo. I know Scott Carter can guess this right away. Here's three dudes tonight having dinner at Spurger's Grand Grill with the Florida Victorious group. All right, there they are. You should be able to pick out one really easy, maybe two. Let's see who can get the first string, all right? We'll leave it up there, and we'll see how quickly you could get it because Scott Carter will get it in 2 seconds, naturally. On the program tonight, we're going to talk about the baseball team struggling, trying to get to the tournament. Softball team doing well, nationally ranked. Gymnastics teams had a good year, and Scott was there. And later tonight, we'll talk with Dan Bond, who was there in Dallas as well, talking about that terrific program Jenny Roller's putting on. Then we'll get Coach Lauren Meadows, who will tell us a few things about his thoughts. And I'm still taking comments and questions from the Josh Pate interview. The much talked about Josh Pate interview, which I will talk about later on. But let's go right now to the orange and blue room where the man, the myth, the legend, he's got something on his shirt. Florida. I wonder what it says. Could it be Gators? Oh,
old school shirt.
I love the old school shirts. I love them. I've got one in my drawer, Scott. It's got to be 20 years old. It's old.
Yeah.
First Nike shirts, Spurrier football. Yeah, I love the old school shirts. They got to come back with a whole line of those, you know.
Well, it seems like the last 2 or 3 years you see a lot more of them.
Yeah.
They do have some. I think it is Home Field, the T-shirt company. They've gone retro a lot.
Yeah.
So I actually like retro stuff more than some of the new stuff. So I guess that just says I'm getting old.
Well, we're getting old. We like it. Exactly right. And by the way, I think my favorite T-shirt I ever owned was when I went to school and I enrolled at Florida, navy blue, Florida, I think in white with orange outline. And I
Oh yeah.
love that. I wore that shirt out. So yeah, that's good stuff. Doesn't get any better than that. Well, Scott, good to talk to you again. Thanks for joining. By the way, we've got the answers to these people already. I'm sure you can figure it out. Several people jumped in there. I think the first one to get all three was, let's see who it was. Robert Turner got two of them. I'm assuming he knew the other one. And then Dan Bond got them all. That would be the guy in the middle we know is Chris Doring, naturally. The guy on the left is QB1, Graham Mertz, that we know is going to be a big part of the program. And the guy on the right is the star of the future. The guy I think personally is going to be a real great player. Now they are, and that includes Lagway, DJ Lagway. So they're all enjoying their time at Florida Victorious. All right, I'll be out there Friday night enjoying my birthday dinner with my wife and my son and what have you. Let me start out tonight with, I don't want to start on negative stuff because Shane and I have already been back and forth on this whole thing. Let's talk about the softball team, where they are, what you're doing, what kind of year they're facing, and what kind of odds they have of surviving postseason.
Well, I think they're on pace definitely for postseason. I mean, they finally have discovered some pitching, with Brown and Rothrock, and then of course they got a great performance from Wooten. I think it was on Sunday. So if she can add a third pitcher to the rotation, I think they're going to be good. And they're still playing well, even though the slumping at the plate a little bit compared to what we've seen. But I think every team's going to go through that. But I just, Tim Walton, I think when you look at what he's done, it's a pretty remarkable track record. But I do think that to win it all, he knows you have to have a couple of really good pitchers, and that was focused on what they were doing and as he built this year's roster. And they got a couple of those freshmen, and I don't know if they'll do it this year, buddy, but I do like the way it's set up for the future with what kind of pitching you set up because, and the SEC is so tough. I mean, it's like baseball.
Yeah.
There's 8, 9 teams in the league that's
Yeah.
going to be in the tournament, and you just have to have that high quality pitching because that's what it's going to take if you get to Oklahoma City. So, again, I don't know if this is a year where a lot of people are saying the Gators have a chance to win it all, but I do think they can be there and be a player.
I'm going to try to bail myself out here a little bit on something. Seems like, and Shane stirs it up in the morning. He loves to stir it up. We do the show, of course, every Monday night and every Tuesday morning. And about 3 weeks ago, I made the comment. I said, well, this is a different kind of spring. The baseball team is struggling, losing midweek games a lot. And some people say it doesn't bother them, but it bothers me. I have the right to say that as a former baseball veteran. I have the right to say that. And I said the softball team, and I forget what I said. I think I said they're not elite right now. And and they said, "What do you mean not elite?" I said, "Well, they have certain expectations. And I don't know if they're meeting those expectations this year, but they're not as of this year at this moment not elite." Well, Shane argued with me about that. What do you mean? Of course they're Tim Walton. I didn't say the program. I said they're not elite. Well, I never got over that one. I've been got bombarded by people who say, but I didn't know what he's talking about. Man, I probably don't. But so, and that was my point, is just that Tim Walton's teams have been so good so long. It's like the football program. The football program right now is not elite. It's an elite program historically, but as we speak, it's not elite. I don't know. I'm trying to find the right semantics to say it. Scott, help me out. You're a wordsmith.
Well, I think the softball program is certainly closer to being more elite than the football program currently. And if they're not elite, buddy, they're certainly knocking at the door. I think what's hurt the softball team the last couple of weeks. I mean, Skylar Wallace, who is certainly an elite player, I think she was in an 0 for 14 slump, which for her, that's probably the longest she's ever gone without a hit in her whole life. Uh, so if they can get her going again, which she will, but if they get her going again and they continue to get this good pitching that they've been getting, again, I think they can be in Oklahoma City and have a chance. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I've studied the whole potential field tonight. I know there's a lot of good teams out there, but I think Florida is certainly, they're in the upper echelon if they're not elite.
Did you are you watching the Stetson score?
Last time I saw it was what, 9 to
Well,
3, I
apparently
think.
Cags has hit 2 home runs tonight. Apparently,
Yeah, they've hit. I see what Dan posted here. He hit 7 tonight. I was out for a little while away from the game, but that's not surprising. I mean, Cags has been doing it all year. That streak he just got off of with 9 in a row, which tied the NCAA record. You've got to be a special player to be able to hit a home run in 9 straight games.
but you know what else he
And
did? He hit 11 in 11 games.
yeah, I mean
How about that?
yeah, he's been everything that the Gators hoped this year. You knew he was going to be having a huge year at the plate, which he has. He's had a really good season on the mound. But what ails the baseball team, buddy, is pretty clear. It's the pitching, and I think they have a leadership void this year. Cags has even talked about it. He's not exactly the rah rah leader in the clubhouse type. He's a guy who goes out and does it on the field. But baseball, those guys are around each other so much. You have to have those guys who serve as kind of the bell cow or cowbell. And I don't know if they have that this year. When you lose guys like Wyatt Langford and Hurston Waldrop and Brandon Smoke, they lost a lot of veteran players from last year. I think this year it's cost them a little bit, but you can evaluate or kind of break it down how you will. I think we talked last week. I mean, when you're last in the league in pitching, that tells you all you need to know what's been the problem. Um, they just haven't pitched well, and that we haven't seen that from. So we've seen it a couple of years when they've been down in pitching, but one consistency during his 17 seasons, they always have elite pitching, to use that word. And this year it has not been. So they've just been inconsistent. Some guys that you thought maybe would, come through the second half of the season, maybe grow up a little bit. They've just been inconsistent, and that's why you're seeing them lose. 2 out of 3 against Vanderbilt over the weekend. Now they have to go out to Arkansas this weekend, and that's going to be a very tough series. And you look at what they have left, buddy. I mean, they've got, I think, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. All those series are going to be extremely difficult to win 2 out of 3 with the way they're pitching and those other teams are playing. And there's no doubt that Florida, if they can get to that, 13, 14 wins in the SEC, I think you'll see them get a benefit of a doubt because the NCAA tournament wants to see Jack Caglione in it. It's just a matter of can they get enough pitching to help him out.
Well, the narrative's been bandied back and forth, especially from Brady and I, is what does it take to get a statue? Now, some of the things, this criteria we have, like for the Ring of Honor, I'm not sure I understand completely, but I want to get you on again. We're going to Jeremy Foley and find out what does it take to get in some of these things. And someone said, well, shouldn't they put a statue of Cags in the stadium? Well, what is the criteria? Well, if he wins the Golden Spikes Award, which I guess he could, then does that qualify him? And, I mean, I think we all agree he's certainly, if not the greatest baseball player Florida had, one of the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty small conversation with him and Brad Wilkerson, quite frankly, when you
Yeah.
look at, doing it as a pitcher and as a player. and the potential upside that they have at the next level. I mean, I think those two guys are kind of in a league of their own at Florida. And Caglione is, I mean, I think he's going to probably be drafted higher than Wilkerson was, and
Well, you
Wilkerson went
think it'll
on
be
to have.
top five? You think Keggs will be top five?
Oh yeah, I'll be shocked if he's not top five, and I still think there's a real chance of him being number one because of what he can do two ways, and you just don't come across that type of player. Very, very rare. I mean, we've seen it in recent years in the big leagues with Shohei Ohtani, but before him, Babe Ruth was that last guy to do it at his
Absolutely.
level
Absolutely.
in the big leagues. So, I mean, that's all you need to know how rare that is. And
Yeah.
it's going to take the team that wants to give Caglione the opportunity, because a lot of teams will just say, "Hey, we want you to be a first base DH type," but he can also pitch. I mean, he's left-handed, so I think that's going to help him a lot. If he, in his case, he's a left-hander who throws in the high 90s.
By the
Again,
way,
that's a
yeah, that's
prime
amazing.
commodity. Yeah.
By the way, just so you know, Tony Gwynn, as you know, some people think is the greatest hitter of all time. I go with Ted Williams myself, but and I guess that's his set. Tony Gwynn struck out only 188 times in the 1990s, the whole decade.
Amazing.
Ohtani struck out 189 times in 2021. How's that for a stat? Amazing.
A lot of games are different. I tweeted something earlier. I was reading a bio or an obit on Ken Holtzman, the former Cubs ace pitcher. He threw a no-hitter in 69 against the Braves. He didn't even strike out a batter, buddy. So, just shows you how different the game is.
Gotta pop it up. Gotta pop it up.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, Scott, I want to do this, if you will. I want to take a quick break, and I want to put this up first. We'll talk about this when I come back. Special event and special guest this week, tomorrow night, on this program. This is, I just ordered the book. I don't have my copy yet, but it's Spurgeon's Grind Grill. You see it. Patrick Young. We'll talk about him next, right here on the Buddy Martin Show after this timeout and message from our sponsors at Melton Law.
Jeffrey, you do a show where you ask a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV. But after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know, because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach.
All right, thanks, Jeffrey Meldon. Check him out, Meldon Law. Scott, Patrick Young, a special young man. This thing I put up about this book signing. Patrick will be our guest tomorrow night on the program. First of all, with Allie Peakman and Will for himself. He's doing this book signing. Freddie called me tonight. And next Tuesday, his book, I just ordered my copy tonight. I've not read it yet. And we know his story, which is so inspirational. And I have a friend, Tom Ingram, who went through something similar as Patrick. Had to relearn how to walk and everything else. He's become friends with Patrick, or they communicate back and forth. And he'll be there next Tuesday. And Patrick will do the show at 11 o'clock, whatever, and he'll sign books before and after. And then you're having a dinner, Tom and my friend Tom Ingram and Patrick and Freddie. So worthy cause. What do you know about the book? Tell us about Patrick Young.
Well, Patrick, I still remember the first year I was in this job was Patrick's freshman season at Florida. and I really came in kind of like the second football game of the season, so I hadn't really didn't know much about Patrick, but you immediately meet the guy, and he's got one of those personalities that just captivates you. And obviously, we know what he did on the basketball team. I mean, he was a 4-year guy, led that team to part of three consecutive Elite Eights, and then of course his senior year they went to the Final Four. And every time I see him, he's still got that big smile. Just one of the most approachable athletes I've encountered at Florida. A thoughtful guy, and he just he's hard not to like. And you think of all the people you met in your life, and you think, man, something like that happened to Patrick. You couldn't think of a person a nicer person, and you just feel horrible what happened. But yet, the way he's handled it just shows you what kind of a man he is. And he obviously came from a really strong family. And again, I haven't read the book either, buddy. I've read a couple of reviews on it. He obviously, it sounds like, I mean, he laid his soul bare in the book, just about some of the things that was going on before the accident and how he's handled it. And then even after the accident, he was getting back on his rehab, and he had this infection that put him back in the hospital for like 6 months. And yet he's still doing his SEC network job, and obviously he's doing a lot of speaking engagements now based on what I see on social media. And if you want someone who has a powerful, uplifting message, Patrick Young, it's hard to find anybody with one more I guess uplifting and just just a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a very beautiful soul. That's what he says. Wally
Yeah,
Gators
yeah.
says it. That's a great way to put it.
It is a great way. And by the way, if you watch him play basketball, which we all did, you had to love his style. I remember late in the season, his senior year, a ball hit the floor. He went on that floor. He was getting that basketball. It was such,
Yeah, that was that Tennessee game.
yeah,
That's kind of his signature moment, at Florida. But he was an athlete. I mean, he was a really good player.
great effort. And he'll turn this into, I don't want to say victory because you never can have a victory when your body's not working right. But he'll be, I don't want to say because of his accident, he'll be more popular than ever. He already had a great engaging personality, sparkling personality, and now he's even better as a person. I think people will love him. So I'm rooting for Patrick, and I can't wait to have him on the show tomorrow night at 9 o'clock here. So come check it out. So yeah, here's a little. You probably don't know about this. One of our informed people, Animal says, Twitter says former USC IOL Jason Zamidala is expected to commit to Florida, #1 player in the portal. That would be something, huh?
Yeah, that would be the kind of get that the Gators definitely could use.
Yeah,
You look at what they're trying to do in the spring transfer
yeah.
portal. The
That's
offensive
yeah,
line and receiver are probably the two positions that they could help themselves the
yeah.
most. You get the #1 guy in the portal, that would be a big get for the Gators, and I like that. I hope it happens. I'd heard that he's obviously there's mutual interest there, and he was in town recently, so that's a good sign for Florida right there.
Well, you take that, and now I've had people ask me in recent days um, about the running game. You look at what they got in the guy I call um, the running back from Texas, and the guy who looked so good in the spring game. Uh,
Jaden Ball, yeah,
I couldn't think. I was trying to think of Ball because I called him Sammy, Sammy Ball. Ball. Yeah, and I couldn't think of him. Called Ball.
Ball is
Yeah,
too.
Sammy Ball. Yeah, he was one of Dan Jenkins' favorite people. But anyway,
Was,
Ball looked so good, and if you heard the comments by Ernest Graham, who knows a thing or two about running the rock, so how he made all the right moves. And he just looked at this guy's 6'2", 237, and runs really. strong,
Yeah.
and you start thinking about the running room. You got to look at the other backs they got now. ETN, who, they got enough talent back there. One big offensive lineman stud like that could dramatically alter what they do on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. Could change
Yeah.
everything. Such a key thing to get. And of course, a wide receiver, yes. But anyway, that would be a big one. And that's the thing about it. You can change your team in a heartbeat. You change your team in Portland. The only problem is they're already 2 over their limit of 85. So somebody's going to
Yeah.
go bye-bye.
Yeah, they'll have some attrition. It hasn't really. I think Manny Nunnery is the one that is out right now,
Yeah.
but there'll be probably a couple more at least. Um, and I agree with Animal there. Of everything I saw in the spring game, the biggest impression any player made on me that day was Jaden Baugh. I just loved everything about his game, and we know running back is one of those positions that you can replace guys relatively quickly, and you hate to see Trevor Etienne leave, but quite frankly, after I saw Jaden Baugh, I've kind of forgot about Etienne
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think Ball and I think Montrell, they're more than enough. And then you've also got Katie Daniels back there. You've got Jacoby Davis. So you've got some guys there who can play, and I'm sure they'll still mix in Eugene Wilson here and there with some misdirection stuff. And of course, you got the guy who you talked about earlier. I still think we'll see DJ Lagway in some
Yeah.
situations with
Yeah. At
running
some
game.
point, yeah.
Yeah, to offer the change of pace. So I think they'll be fine in the running game, but anytime you can get an offensive lineman of the caliber that they're in the hunt for, you take him.
Yeah, that's big. And I think back about the great teams of the 80s had such great running backs. And it developed. It changes everything. So we'll see how that goes. Did you get a chance to see the interview Billy did this past weekend? And what did you think of it?
Yeah, you're talking about the Pate interview, I'm
Right.
assuming. Yeah, that came out. Actually, I was traveling that day out to Texas for gymnastics, but I did see a lot of the stuff on Twitter. I saw some of obviously the two big takeaways that seemed to stick most with fans was, Billy had already basically told the riders during camp that, he was going to still call plays, but I think he did it more in an overt fashion with Pate. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing was what special teams question raised a lot of eyebrows or got a lot of attention where, and he said the same thing during camp to the beat writers. Look, we know that those, half a dozen plays with 10 men on the field or a guy trying to jump over the back, that's that's uh that's unacceptable. That's on us. But when you look at the stats, our special teams was actually a strength. So, it's kind of a perception against reality kind of thing, buddy. He's right in the fact that their special teams did perform as a whole pretty well last year. But when you have such uh what's the word, embarrassing mistakes, that takes all the headlines. So
Yeah.
I hope that they get those corrected because I think that's just not what the kind of product you want out there on the field. But again, I do think they did a lot of good things there. So, but I understand where the fans are coming from. I understand what Billy's trying to say, but it's just really which way you want to look at it right now.
By the way, I thought Josh Pate did a really good job at the interview.
Yeah, I need to watch the whole thing. I haven't had a
Yeah,
chance.
you should
but
watch it. And I say that as someone who wishes I could have been the person to do that, but I get why I couldn't, because if you let one guy who covers the team do it, other people don't want to do it. So you purposely pick someone outside the circle to do it. And Josh did a terrific job. I had him on the show. I actually wrote a column about it last week and some of the things that he said. There wasn't any hot takes. It wasn't designed for hot takes. He just confirmed he's going to call plays. He talked. I thought the most perceptive thing that Josh said is when Billy asked him about his perception of what was going on inside the program. And what happened was they started the interview out, and And Josh asked Billy, well, we hear this, hear that. How are things going? And Billy said, well, you've been here all day. And by the way, Josh told me he said he had the greatest access he ever had to a program and interviewing people. He said to Josh, well, what do you think? And Josh had a great response. He said, well, clearly I can see what's going on here, which is not what people think. But the perception out there is different than what it is in here. And that really is the case.
It is, and I see it up close myself. I mean, I know they're putting in the hours. I know they've got good people in the building. I know they've turned over the roster now to the point where it's his program, his players, I think his culture. And now it's just, you got to get results. I mean, that's the bottom line. It really is to the point where it's only about results now for those guys. And I hope that they can get it done this year because, again, I really like Billy. I like a lot of what he does with the program. I think he's trying to do it the right way, and it's taken a while. And he's talked about how difficult the NIL has been to kind of solidify because right when he got here, that's when the NIL went into effect. And but some programs have done it quicker and better than others. I think his approach has been kind of they use the term holistic a lot, from player development to player experience, NIL, all this stuff. And I think the learning curve was probably a little bigger than maybe he imagined at first. But I think he's got a grasp of everything now. And now hopefully the results show on the field. I do like this roster better than probably any roster they've had since 2020.
Yeah.
And we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
You just hope some of these young guys are players who can contribute in year one.
Right. Now, by the way, we got Dan Bond standing by in the orange and blue room. We talked about the baseball team is struggling. Softball team is doing well. And the gymnastics team finished with a flourish and had a unfortunate wind in the Final Four, but had a terrific year. Let's bring Dan aboard because I know he was your barbecue eating buddy out there in Fort Worth. And you're your guide.
I missed it this year, man. I saw Dan out there. Hey Dan, I saw Dan at the one of the press conferences, but unfortunately we didn't get to go to Himes this year. But
Right. Well, next time they're putting a big one near Dickey's Arena that I can take you to next year.
all right, that sounds good. You're never going to get me to
Right.
turn down you, man.
I thought I'd get you guys on. Excuse me. Go
It's
ahead.
the place to go get some brisket. All right.
Yeah. Why don't you two together talk about this? It was a kind of an astonishing finish to get into the Final Four to me. I still have a hard time figuring out the scoring system. I don't know how it works. But clearly, some good things happened with the young people. One of the veterans kind of slipped up a little bit there. Why don't you take me through it, Dan and Scott, and tell me, it looks like Jenny Rowland's got a great squad coming back. What kind of shape is the program in, and how can we assess the Final Four?
Oh, sure. It's been a wonderful season. The fact that they scored a higher score every meet all through the season is really something you do not see. So that improvement with that freshman class is definitely panning out on the floor and beam and all the rotations there. And then just to get there is definitely an accomplishment. And to have to advance when Oklahoma didn't advance is great. They had six freshmen compete, where say LSU only had two and Utah had three to contribute. So the future is bright. Unfortunately, like Oklahoma, they kind of lost it on the vault at the beginning. That was their first rotation, and they didn't stick their landing, so they didn't get the score. Although that was one of their best events and probably one of their best at the end of the season. So that happens. That's something that does happen in gymnastics. This year, I was not as upset about the scoring as the last 2 years, where I thought there was a lot more questionable scoring. There was a little bit of that on the unbalanced beam, in my opinion. But otherwise, they kind of did what they did, and you can't get too upset with the scoring this season. What do you think, Scott?
Well, you got a Russian judge in there clearly, and
Right.
obviously that was the case. And who understands the scoring? But that, yeah, go ahead, Scott. Your 2 cents worth.
No, I mean Dan hit the highlights there. When you cover sports, as long as I have, you'll see a surprise once in a while that really, if this had been football, it's kind of like the Patriots when they went 18-0 back in '07 and then lost to the Giants. That was kind of comparable to what Oklahoma did on Thursday night. Uh, Oklahoma, I mean, what they just like Dan said, they stumbled out of the gate on the vault and they're out of it. And I mean, it was shocking. You could just sense it in the building from the other teams and coaches, and of course, it opened the door for the Gators. They did what they had to do to advance to the Final Four, which was a huge accomplishment when you look at where this team came from at the start of the year. I certainly didn't expect them to be in the Final Four, but they weren't at their best on Saturday, and it cost them. Again, it started on vault, as Dan said, and talking to Jenny Rowland after the meet. I mean, she's like, look, you know, this we had a great season. That she never had a team grow up that much in front of her own eyes throughout the course of a season, and now they have Kayla DiCello after Paris. Hopefully, she should be back next year. They'll have Sky Blakely coming in, who's also trying for the Olympic team. They hope to have Raleigh McCusker back, and then you've got just a lot of talent coming back, and also Leanne Wong and the group that's here. I mean, I think really they're going to lose Peyton Richards, which I think is the only definite loss. I think there's still some question whether or not Victoria Wynn will come back, but either way, they're going to be a really good team next year. I think next year they'll be talked about as a national championship contender. But again, I thought it was an excellent coaching job by Jenny Rowland and her staff this year. And I was sitting there on Saturday, Dan. I don't know about you. I was thinking because it was wide open, that Final Four. It was anybody's
Right.
to have. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be so weird if the Gators actually win this the year Trinity Thomas leaves? It's like I
Right.
mean, Trinity Thomas, arguably the best individual gymnast in school history, her and Bridget Sloan. But it didn't happen for them. But that just shows you what this team did. They grew up and they got a lot of contributions from young gymnasts, and again, I like the future.
Well,
Oh,
there,
certainly. Next year will be loaded, and I want to say Oklahoma loses maybe 7 seniors, and LSU loses about that many. But some of those key players are back for those top 3 teams, so it'll be kind of a rewash and repeat for next year, I believe, with Florida with all their people in line to get those 9 nines that you need once you hit that level. They're all so very good. Just a wobble here and a slide of your foot there, and your handstand's not perfect, and then that's it.
yeah, Dan, I'm all that Scott go. He's got to go to work tomorrow. I don't keep him up all night. He's an old man like me, and has to have milk and cookies before he goes to bed. So he's been on here for a
Right.
minute.
Like
And
BA Beard.
Scott, thank you for everything. Dan, can you hang for a second? Talk a little
Oh, sure.
softball with our man Lauren right around the corner.
Oh, certainly.
All right. All
All right,
right. Thank you,
y'all
Scott.
have a good night.
Have a good night, my friend. All right. Scott
See
Carter,
you.
4years.com. All right. Let me tell you about Titan MRI, North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility for MRIs. They want you to know they're open for business, and the facilities serving the greater Gainesville and North Central Florida area. They're focused on the patient experience, and they know most people lead a busy life and don't always have time to come in for the regular business hour checkups. So they're making other times available for the people who can't, who have to go there and could get a night or a weekend appointment. All you have to do is call Titan MRI and ask, and they will meet your needs. They do that well. They also want you to know they have modern equipment, and their MRI units have one of the largest borers, and it also helps you in terms of allowing more comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic people. So check them out, TitanMRI.com. Now, to the Orange and Blue Room, Dad's partner in the crime, and sometimes, occasionally, seatmate, is our man coach, Lauren Meadows. Evening, Lauren.
How you guys doing?
Evening,
Very good.
Lauren. Good to
How you
see you.
doing, sir? Good to see you.
Good, good. Just living the life in Dallas.
I hear you.
All right, so Dan and Lauren talk to me. First, Lauren, talk to me about the softball team. I know you stay up with it. And then we'll talk a little softball with Dan, where they are. And I had this conversation going on with Shane about whether the team is elite this year or not, whatever that means. I'll get your take, and you give us your take on that, and I'll let Dan respond to it. Not that they don't have a terrific program and haven't been elite, but sometimes you have to keep learning, earning your elite status. So give me your take on that, Lauren, then we'll get Dan in it.
Well, I definitely say that I wouldn't necessarily say elite. They're definitely good, though. I would put them, in the top 15 of programs in the country right now. But, the thing to keep in mind is this is an extremely young team. You got basically the pitching staff is two freshmen and Ava Brown and Keegan Rothrock, who, once again, very highly touted, but freshmen. They start a freshman at third base in Ariel Kalewski. And then the second baseman is a name, Jason Williams' daughter, Mia Williams, at second base. And it's a team that hit really well during the preseason, so to speak, and then has gotten into the conference schedule and kind of died down a little bit. Skylar Wallace is actually kind of in the middle of a slump, and most people are used to her really jumping out the box, but she's kind of in a little slump right now. But obviously, far too talented to stay there. And they're 2 games out of first place in the SEC, right there. Probably dropped a couple they shouldn't in Missouri last week, or they'd be right there in first place. And maybe we're lucky to get out the game against South Carolina, made some base running areas and just really didn't execute. But the bats kind of came along. But you've got Corby Otis, who transferred from Louisville, who'll be back. Kendra Falby will be back. Reagan Walsh will be back. So, and then they've really got 3 highly touted freshmen coming in the next year. So I would say, right now they're a good team. Next year they could really be elite. I think Mia Williams will slide over to shortstop, which is more natural for her, and then they'll just plug and play. But it's going to be a team that has a lot of speed on the base pass as they do this year. But top 15 team, kind of right there. I think the last time I checked, they were 17th in the RPI. You got to be in the top 16 to host a regional. So if they take care of their work this weekend, got a big road trip to Georgia this weekend. That could be big. If they get 2 out of 3, or if you sweep Georgia, and then they got Texas A&M coming in here, who's right there. So good, but not necessarily elite. But in the next 2 to 3 years, this is definitely a softball team that should not only get to Oklahoma City, but get to Oklahoma City with the ability to possibly win it all.
Dan?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what Lauren is saying. Very parallel to the gymnastics team with it so young, and really to make it to Oklahoma City would be a big time win. Um, yeah, they are slumping a little bit in SEC play, and nowadays with the technology, where they can just plug in a pitcher and the pitching machine throws that same pitch. Maybe there's a little bit of that catching up with Rothrock and Brown, plus the added they've pitched so many innings as a freshman, they could be hitting a little bit of a wall as far as getting those outs as they did in the beginning of the season. But I think the hitting will come around. Definitely, they left like 21 runners on base on their last loss. So, like Lauren said, they're in a bit of a slump here, but definitely good. Could get out of a regional, can get out of a super regional, win it all. I would be floored if they won it all, but if they make it to Oklahoma City, I'll be there.
All right. Here's
And the big and for those of us that like the hometown people, Red Oxley from Bartow, Florida, was Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Florida. Will just add to once again another All American pitcher that the Gators will add. So right now the pitching has been up and down because of the freshmen, but you add Red Oxley next year, and that's going to be one of the best staffs in the country next year.
Right. I mean, 0% pitches back this year is just unheard of. So they're doing well with what they have for sure.
Right.
more reports on Twitter about Jason Zandamela from USC, number one guy in the portal, big offensive lineman, looking like he's going to be coming to Florida. How big, Lauren, would that be?
That'd be huge. I mean, they're consistently retooling the offensive line. They got Austin Barber back. Um, and they moved Damian George to guard. I mean, the way that the Gators like to run with that zone scheme and things like that. I mean, just having those interior guys that can move those down linemen. That's what you want in the zone scheme is getting those down guys blocked, and you got 3-4 yards a clip. I mean, getting somebody of that caliber that would really be one of the more prominent, um, really since they got the guys when Billy first came in with Osiris Torrance and things like that, would be one of the first highly touted transfers that they've gotten since Napier's been there. And obviously, you went up front in this league, and with the schedule that they have, I mean, to add depth there and have somebody that could come in right away and be not necessarily a difference maker, but once again, just a plug and play guy, somebody that fits right in, I think would be immense. Anytime you can get yourself better up front, I mean, you got to be pleased.
We were saying
Yeah,
earlier
when you
what?
get hold of a big guy, you want to get hold of that. You can't teach that, as they all say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were saying earlier how much you can change your team's future with one or two players. A massive offensive athletic lineman can make a huge difference. All of a sudden, you become more of a running game, and that's stable of running backs that we talk about, especially with the new kid Ball. Now, this becomes another weapon and suddenly takes the pressure off the passing game. So, one player like that can make a big difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, talking to I've had the opportunity to talk to Austin Barber a little bit during softball games and things like that. He's dating one of the softball players and just a really nice kid, but really somebody who fits that 5 = 1 when you talk about offensive line, and just the way they've retooled the group, and I think the excitement and the belief that group has in one another is really, you can really feel that when you talk to Austin. I mean, he's been out with injury, but really starting to feel better. And yeah, I mean, with the transfer portal, I mean, the one thing about it is you get those plug and play guys, like I talked about the safeties, Evans and Turner. I mean, those are going to be guys that will make a palpable difference on that defense. And then the same thing on offensive line. You bring those guys in, you retool, you put some guys around a more than capable quarterback, and you got a chance. I mean, the schedule is tough, but that's why you play in the SEC. You play those tough games. You play those big games, and they're just, I mean, that's one thing that's been impressive this offseason. I think they've really got some guys that can really come in and make a difference. Now, you got to go out and execute, but like you said, buddy, it can really make a difference and make a difference right away. And this is the year to do it, no doubt about it. With the dogs they got coming in here, but Florida's got some guys too. I think we've always talked about it's not really the talent that is in our eyes that is really hurt Florida. It's just going out and executing on a consistent basis week to week that's really plagued this football team. So if they can get that together and be consistent week in, week out, they should and could win a lot of football games, so.
Yeah,
You
I don't
know,
think the offense is going to be the problem. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they look this year on offense.
and the confidence game. I mean, having been around it all my life, and I'm sure you guys have too. I've seen teams play better than they are a lot. I
Absolutely.
love teams that play big, play over their potential. And you go back and look. Here's an amazing thing: Steve Spurrier, I believe, was 1-3-1 or 1-2-1 in South Carolina. That's Duke, excuse me, at Duke, and they're really struggling. And they somehow found a way to beat Clemson. He says that game to this day is really what got him from down his track and helped him get promoted. They started paying attention, and they did it with a lot of guys that were really backups and stuff, playing out of their gourds. The running back coming in all of a sudden just big chunks of yardage. There's something about sports that when you can play above the rim, play above yourself, it inspires other people around you and makes you a better football team, Lauren.
No doubt about it. I mean, I can think of many games. I mean, if you ever asked me, like, what were the games where you knew the team was really getting it, or you were taking the next step, and a lot of times it is that kid that nobody expected to make a play, and just out of nowhere, you're like, oh my goodness, or what did we just see, or just, I mean, I got a buddy of mine who. Who actually I coached, but was back when I was a little younger, and he made a great one hand catch against one of the top programs in Ohio, and nobody expected him to make the catch. And I always tell us this is one of the best catches ever in school history, and it was a kid that wasn't one of the top dogs, but when he was called upon, he made plays. And like you said, buddy, I mean, we've seen it. We all play sports, been around sports, those magical moments where it's like, wow, and you can point to that. And I would say, we're going to see that. That's going to be a palpable thing when it happens, and we're all going to be there watching it when Florida really, if and when Florida really takes the next step. It's going to be, it's going to come off like fireworks because everybody involved is going to get it and see it, and that's really when things are going to turn the corner. And then once you get there, it just kind of keeps going. So yeah, I mean, I think that Billy Napier said that, and essentially this is the best roster he's ever had. He feels like all their systems are in place. So, that's a gift and a curse. I mean, a lot of people like to hear that, but then that puts you under the gun when you say things like that, because now, okay, you got it. Here we go. So, going forward, it's just going to be interesting. But I think that, you talk about some people, Jordan Ball kind of coming out of nowhere, and just, what Lagway really was able to show that if not this year, next year, this team could really have a player that they could build around, and somebody that, I think, to look at the way he behaved himself during recruiting and was able to bring other guys in. And a lot of guys came in because they wanted to play with DJ Lagway. And you got that. It's almost like, I mean, and you've mentioned it, buddy, where you think he's going to be, but you talk about that Tebow effect where people just want to be around you and things like that. Like, he came and sat with us at softball game on Friday, and just was kind of, but just like you said, but he kind of does have that presence. So we'll see, man. But yeah, I agree. It's you got a lot of things that are there, but once again, you got to go. I keep saying this, and I hate to be Debbie Downer, but you don't win games in April. And when the time comes, they got to go out and get it.
These are the kind of things you'd like to see, though, Dan, right here. There's your QB1, QB2 with Chris Story. And you look at that guy on the right, and that's the guy we're talking about. And Dan, you
Yeah, he's
said,
definitely got that buzz,
yeah, and Dan, you said you sat with him and you could feel his presence, right? Yeah,
Absolutely. Great kid. Friend of ours went over and just kind of grabbed him, say, "Hey, man, if you want to come sit with us, you don't have to sit by yourself." And it came right over. Wasn't standoffish. Was a big softball fan. I've seen him at a couple games, and just a guy that's really getting out there, man. And that's what you got to do. And I
yeah.
can appreciate about every time I've had any interaction with him. Raising cane, standing in line, things like that. Just a decent dude. So like I said, we'll see where a lot of guys. I mean, they really have some guys that I think are ready to take the next
Yeah.
step. And here's somebody that, I mean, I didn't realize, and Dan, you could correct me, Buddy too. everybody talked about Andy Jean, and he was really starting to turn that corner until he got hurt. But man, he is big, man. Like they were, I was in practice and they were kind of doing the injury drills they do, and I was like, "Who is that dude over there?" And you get up on him, and it's Andy Jean. I mean, he's big,
Didn't
man.
know
And
that.
so I think they're gonna have some, you talk about receiver, running back, and like I said, the two safeties that I think are really gonna make them pretty good on defense. I mean, it's the next couple of years. I mean, like I said, just got to see. I mean, you got two big hawks coming in. Oklahoma and Texas ain't no punks. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
only gonna get thicker.
All right,
Well,
so I'm
your
going to
road
give.
tickets went on sale today, so I hope you went ahead and ordered those Longhorn tickets and come on
I
down
got a
here.
I got a little inside track. So yeah, I'm
Right,
taking care of
right, right.
it.
Dan, you got to get our bed and breakfast ready for us out there in Austin. Okay. So
Oh yeah, we'll have you all lined up.
um, I'm going to throw this out at you, and I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to let your comments follow throughout the inning. Uh, this whole thing now with recruiting, there's such a misnomer about this kind of thing. I've always thought this, and this is the evidence. You better be careful how you spend your NIL money, okay? Recruiting is hardly a sex science. It's not a science. You cannot know for sure what you're getting. University of Miami has now lost 7 ESPN top 150 players from Cristobal's first 2 recruiting classes. 7. A lot of the factors are included the NIL. One of 7 left because he wanted more money. Some were overestimated as players. Some didn't develop. One person got hurt. Some got impatient. It is not a sure thing. So those that spend smart instead of lavishly, as by the way Miami did, are going to be the winners in the end. Chew on that for 1 second. I'll come right back to you. I'll tell you about Renstar Medical Research, one of our favorite groups of people in Ocala. They do a terrific job as citizens. They also have your health at interest, and they want you to know about clinical trials. Very key and very important that you pay attention. They exist today because they want to bring new therapies to the public safely, and clinical trials would not exist except for the commitment of volunteers like you. If you'd like to help out with this project at Renstar Medical Research, you might receive study-related medications and procedures that would not exist otherwise. You'd be able to get those. No charge to you or your insurance company. And they might give you access to investigational devices not otherwise available. So check them out. If you want to be a part of it, you might receive compensation for time and travel. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. All right, guys, my comments about recruiting, not an exact science. You go first, Dan, and then Dan, you close this up, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's the way it is now is the NIL money, and I really feel confident about where they're going. You can from the land far, far away over here. What we're seeing, you can see what Freddie Weeby has already done since he's taken the reins, and the excitement and all the different um, events that they've had around the spring game and stuff that's trickling out, like the interview with Doring and Lagway and Mertz, and just a constant. Um, Showing of what they're going to do and what you need to do to be a winner. And if you can give $5, $10, whatever you got to give, that's the way to go. So, I mean, do we have the billionaire boosters? I'm sure we do, and that's has the names on the building. But I think once everybody kind of chips in, that's the way the recruiting is going to go. And unfortunately, that is the future.
Lauren, close this out.
Well, I would say this about Miami, and we'll start there. Miami, I think what Miami did wrong was they had such an infrastructure problem that it was almost like hooking up the cart before the horse. And it's all glitz and glamour on your recruiting visit, and then you get there. And I think that just some of the things that they may have promised and told people, and that just the infrastructure just was not there, and they were trying to rush to kind of, I don't know what, but it wasn't there. And then in terms of where recruiting is now and the NIL, I mean, it's just never going to be the same. And nowadays, what makes these young men tick is so just so all over the place because there's so many influences now. And I saw an interview with Rajon Rondo, and he coaches an AAU basketball team, and he was saying, he has a rule where there's no social media when they go to these weekend tournaments because the influences and what everybody else is doing is so prominent on these kids now because they could get it from everywhere, and there's so much comparison that it almost forces you to be, basically go to the highest bidder because you don't want to know that that guy's getting more money than you and all these kind of things. So, as we move forward, I would love for the narrative to not be so much pay to play. I don't know how we get away from that, but it is definitely affecting, you know, the old school recruiting and how things are now. And I don't know if we ever get it back to what we know and love. But like you said, buddy, I mean, it's like raising children. There is no exact science. I mean, it's just not. And you got to find a way to not sell your soul. Because like I said, you end up getting these kids and they don't want to be there. They don't want to sit. They don't want to learn. They want everything now. And is it worth it well, in Miami's case, is it worth it to win 6, 7 games a year? No, so I think that's
Right.
where the team is. So, I mean, like you said, I think it's just one of those things where as we move forward, 3 to 4 years from now, I'm very interested to see what high school recruiting, what role it plays in the big picture as these teams are constructed going forward.
All right, good stuff, Lauren. Dan, good to have you on tonight. Been a while.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for all
having
your
me
good.
on.
Yeah, come back
Yeah,
again. We'll do this more often. Appreciate both you guys for the contributions. You can hear them and listen to them and read them and Gatorbait. Thanks a lot, Dan. Thank you, Lauren.
have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Go Gators.
All right, folks, thanks for listening and watching tonight's program. Thank you to our sponsors. Our guest, Scott Carter, as you saw there, Lauren Meadows and Dan Bond. Have a good night. Tomorrow night, Patrick Young will be on the program with Ali Peek and I and David Bolton. So check us out right here. Tell your friends and neighbors we're here every night, right here. Same time, same station. Good night.